Hello there, and welcome to Venture Deep. Today, I will be speaking about why the ocean breeds giants. The ocean is a realm of endless mystery, a place so vast and deep that it holds more secrets than humanity may ever uncover, and within its shadowy waters life has taken on forms both delicate and enormous. For the sea is not merely a home, but a cradle of extremes, a factory of giants, a world that nurtures the largest animals ever known to exist. And this raises the question, why does the ocean, more than any other environment on Earth, breed creatures of such staggering size? From the majestic blue whale that dwarfs every land creature in history, to the colossal squid whose tentacles stretch longer than a bus. From the mighty sharks that have patrolled its currents for millions of years, to the ancient leviathans of prehistory that dominated the oceans before the rise of humankind. The story of ocean giants is one of survival, adaptation, and opportunity, because the sea provides what no land can, an almost limitless space where gravity's pull is softened, where weight is lifted by buoyancy, where bodies can grow and stretch without the crushing limitations of solid ground, and where vast amounts of food move in seasonal cycles, sustaining ecosystems so large that they can support the rise of giants. For as the currents churn and swirl, nutrients rise from the abyss to feed plankton. Plankton sustain fish, fish sustain predators, and each link in this chain fuels the possibility of greater size. Because in the ocean, abundance and emptiness exist side by side, and only the largest and most efficient creatures can cross vast distances to find what they need. And in this survival game, size itself becomes the greatest advantage. To be large is to move farther, to conserve energy more efficiently, to store fat and endure scarcity, to dive deeper where pressure would crush smaller forms, and to endure the endless challenges of life in the deep. And so giants emerge, sculpted by evolution and the demands of survival, rising to dominate the watery world they inhabit. And unlike land, where mountains, deserts, and forests limit how large creatures can be, the ocean is a fluid infinity, an open canvas where life can expand in directions that defy imagination. And this is why the sea harbors the greatest mammal ever born, the greatest invertebrate ever discovered, and some of the greatest fish that still glide silently through the currents today. But the tale of ocean giants is not simply about biology. It is also about mystery, for even now, in the 21st century, new discoveries reveal life forms that blur the boundaries of belief. Ghostly jellyfish as wide as a house, serpentine oarfish stretching like ribbons of silver into the darkness, colossal sharks whose ancestors once grew larger than buses, and whales that vanish into the abyss in pursuit of prey we have never seen. And the ocean, in its silence, hides more than it shows. For in the deep where light never reaches, life grows in alien ways, and gigantism becomes a rule, not an exception. Because to survive in the crushing blackness, size provides strength, endurance, and adaptability. And so, when we speak of giants of the sea, we are speaking not only of their immense physical forms, but of the power of this environment itself to shape life into extremes, to push the very boundaries of what is possible, to create beings so vast that they challenge our understanding of scale. And perhaps this is why the ocean has always inspired fear, awe, and wonder in the human imagination, because when we gaze into the horizon, we are looking not at an empty surface, but at the cradle of giants, at a world where life is written on a scale far beyond our own. And in this realm, everything we know about balance, survival, and adaptation is magnified, made greater, stretched to limits that the land could never allow. And so the sea remains the ultimate stage for the drama of gigantism. For within it, the largest creatures that have ever lived have swum, from the ichthyosaurs of prehistory to the whales that still roam its waters today. And with every dive into the abyss, scientists return with more questions than answers. Because the deeper we go, the larger the possibilities become for what else lies hidden. What colossal beings still move in silence, unseen, waiting in the black waters below. And though we may never meet them all, one truth remains undeniable. The ocean breeds giants because it can, because its rules of space and survival demand it, because buoyancy lifts the body, because nutrients feed abundance, because adaptation rewards size, because the balance of predator and prey pushes life toward ever greater extremes. And so, from the shimmering surface to the lightless depths, the ocean whispers its ancient truth, that here life grows without limit, that here giants are born, and that here the story of nature's greatest beings is still being written silently, powerfully, and endlessly beneath the waves, reminding us always that when we look upon the sea, we are staring into infinity, into the vast unknown, into the living heart of a world that makes giants possible and humanity small. The vastness of the ocean is a world without boundaries, stretching farther than the eye can see, a place so expansive that it covers more than 70% of our planet. And within this limitless environment, life is given room to grow in ways that would be impossible on land. For the buoyant waters lift the weight of even the largest creatures, freeing them from the gravitational constraints that limit terrestrial animals. And in this freedom, giants emerge, beings that defy imagination, growing larger than anything that has walked the earth. And this is no coincidence, but the direct result of the vastness of the sea, where size becomes an advantage, where great distances must be crossed to find food, mates, or safe waters, and where only the strongest and largest can endure the endless demands of survival. So, as the waves roll and currents shift, they create a living stage on which the story of gigantism plays out, endlessly sculpting creatures into massive forms that can thrive in this boundless world. Buoyancy and the gift of weightlessness, like the land, where gravity crushes and limits growth, the ocean offers a unique gift, buoyancy, which counteracts weight and makes it possible for life to expand to incredible proportions. And in this supportive environment, creatures that would collapse under their own weight on solid ground can move with ease, their massive bodies suspended by the water itself, allowing them to grow larger, heavier, and more powerful than any land dweller could ever be. And buoyancy does not only free them from gravity, it also allows them to explore greater depths and reach places where only giants can thrive. And so the sea becomes a sanctuary where evolution rewards size rather than punishes it, turning weight into strength and mass into survival. And thus we see whales, squids, and sharks reaching sizes unimaginable elsewhere. For the ocean is not a prison of pressure, but a womb of giants, nurturing the growth of the largest creatures to ever live. Endless food, life chains. The ocean is a system of life powered by abundance, where tiny organisms like plankton form the foundation of immense food chains, sustaining fish, which sustain larger predators. And on this grand scale, food is available in quantities that allow creatures to grow massive because the sea cycles nutrients constantly, bringing energy from the deep to the surface and spreading it across vast regions, creating feeding grounds where entire ecosystems thrive. And for giants like whales, this abundance means endless opportunities to build energy stores, to feed until their immense bodies are satisfied, and to endure the migrations that span entire oceans. And even in the depths where food is scarcer, gigantism becomes a strategy to conserve energy, to travel farther to find prey, and to outlast hunger. And so the ocean's food chains, intricate and unbroken, are the fuel that powers the rise of its giants, shaping a world where the largest thrive. Energy efficiency of giants in the ocean. Size is not only a measure of power, but also of efficiency. For larger creatures conserve energy better than smaller ones, their massive bodies storing fat and warmth, allowing them to travel across the longest migrations on Earth. And with every movement through the water, their strength is spread across their size, making each stroke more efficient than that of smaller beings. And so gigantism becomes not a burden, but a survival tool. For in the sea, where food can be abundant yet scattered, only those who can endure long journeys and fasting times will prevail. And energy efficiency allows giants to dive deeper, to last longer without oxygen, to outswim smaller prey, and to endure pressures that would crush other creatures. And in this delicate balance of energy and endurance, size itself is the ultimate adaptation, turning the giants of the sea into masters of their realm, capable of ruling the waters across generations. Predator and prey balanced. The relationship between predator and prey has always been the force that drives evolution. And in the ocean, this balance pushes life toward gigantism. For small creatures can only escape for so long, but the giants that grow large enough find themselves safer. Fewer predators dare to challenge them, and those that do must themselves grow larger to succeed. And so an evolutionary arms race begins, forcing size to increase over time. And in this contest, survival is not about speed alone, but about scale. Because to dominate the waters means to tower over competitors, to outlast threats, and to stand at the top of the food chain. And this constant cycle of pressure creates the titans of the sea, from massive sharks to whales that no predator can challenge. And in this way, the predator-prey balance acts as an eternal sculptor, chiseling away at the possibilities of evolution until giants are formed, shaped by the need to survive in a world of endless competition. The mystery of the deep, the deeper one descends into the ocean, the more alien it becomes, a place of eternal night where pressure would crush a submarine. Yet here, life thrives in ways that defy expectation, and one of the most striking patterns of the deep sea is gigantism. Creatures that grow larger the deeper they live, a phenomenon known as deep-sea gigantism. And scientists still debate its causes, whether it is to conserve energy in scarce environments, to withstand crushing pressure, or to outlast the long lives that unfold slowly in the cold darkness. But what is certain is that in the abyss, size is not an anomaly, but the rule. And so colossal squids, giant amphipods, and enormous jellyfish drift silently in this black world, unseen by most. Yet they are proof that the ocean breeds giants, not only on the surface, but in its very heart, where darkness becomes the stage for the most extraordinary beings alive. The legacy of ancient giants, the giants of today, are not new. They are the echoes of an ancient legacy that stretches back millions of years. For the ocean has always been a breeding ground for massive life, from the ichthyosaurs that swam during the time of the dinosaurs, to the megalodon sharks that once ruled the seas with jaws big enough to crush a whale, to marine reptiles that reached lengths longer than a bus. And this lineage of giants reveals that the ocean has consistently favored immense creatures, generation after generation, era after era. For the rules of the sea do not change. Buoyancy, space, food, and survival pressures have always rewarded size. And so the giants we see today are part of a continuum, a living story that connects the present to the distant past, reminding us that the ocean has always been, and perhaps will always be, the birthplace of the largest beings in existence. Migration across ocean's few environments demand the endurance of long migrations the way the ocean does. For food, breeding grounds, and safety often lie thousands of miles apart, and only the largest creatures can make such journeys, storing energy in their immense bodies and traveling endlessly across the currents. And whales in particular exemplify this, crossing entire oceans to feed and reproduce their size, allowing them to endure starvation, cold, and exhaustion. And in this way, gigantism becomes not a luxury, but a necessity, for without it, such epic journeys would be impossible. And migration ensures that only the strongest and largest survive to pass on their genes, reinforcing the cycle of gigantism generation after generation. And as we watch the giants of the sea move gracefully across the blue expanse, we are reminded that their size is not excess, but adaptation, the key to surviving in a world where the journey never ends. Adaptation to pressure and cold in the ocean. Survival depends on more than food and space. It depends on enduring extremes of pressure and cold, conditions that grow harsher the deeper one goes, and in such places only the giants can survive. Their large bodies storing heat in blubber, resisting the freezing waters that would kill smaller animals, and their strength withstanding pressures that would shatter fragile forms. And this adaptation allows them to explore regions of the ocean that remain closed to others, to dive for hours in search of prey, to travel beneath the ice, and to dominate environments that would otherwise remain barren. And so gigantism is not just about size, it is about resilience, about shaping the body into a fortress against the elements, about ensuring survival where others cannot endure. And this is why the ocean, with all its extremes, produces giants that rule not by chance, but by necessity, the eternal mystery of giants even with all our knowledge. The giants of the ocean remain shrouded in mystery, for there are places we have never explored, depths we have never seen, and creatures we have only glimpsed in passing. And with every discovery, the scale of life beneath the waves seems larger than we imagined, as if the ocean holds within it secrets that will always escape us, and the giants are the greatest of these mysteries, not just in their size, but in their symbolism, for they represent the extremes of life, the power of adaptation, and the endless possibilities of evolution. And when we speak of them, we are speaking of more than biology. We are speaking of awe, of the way the ocean humbles us and reminds us of how small we are. For to gaze into the sea is to gaze into infinity, and within that infinity, giants rise, silently, endlessly, and powerfully, a reminder that the ocean will forever remain the true kingdom of giants, of giants. The power of open space. The ocean is unlike any other environment on Earth because it has no fences, no borders, no mountains or walls that halt the movement of life. Only open space stretching across the planet, and in this freedom creatures are not confined to small territories, but are instead free to expand, to grow, and to roam without end. And this unlimited room removes the restrictions that keep land animals small. For on land, weight becomes a problem, size becomes a burden. But in the sea, the opposite is true. The larger one grows, the more efficient the movement becomes. And so the open space of the sea becomes not just an environment, but an invitation, an endless canvas on which evolution can paint giants, shaping forms that push beyond the limits of imagination, until we have whales longer than airplanes and squids with eyes larger than dinner plates, living proof that in a world without boundaries, life itself becomes boundless. Survival of the largest tin, the endless expanse of the sea. Being large is not simply a choice, but a matter of survival, because the larger you are, the safer you become. For predators hesitate to attack something they cannot overpower, and those that wish to hunt you must themselves grow larger, creating an upward spiral of size that reshapes entire ecosystems. And in this way, gigantism becomes not an accident, but a rule of the ocean. A constant process where only the strongest and largest rise to the top, and smaller creatures remain vulnerable to endless threats, while the giants move almost unchallenged, kings and queens of their watery kingdoms. And survival of the largest becomes an unspoken law of the ocean, enforced not by any single predator, but by the demands of life itself. And so the giants live on generation after generation, because size is their shield, their weapon. It is alive with motion. Great rivers of water, known as currents, flow across its surface and its depths, carrying nutrients, heat, and life from one part of the planet to another. And to follow these invisible highways, creatures must travel great distances. Journeys that require enormous stamina and strength, and only the giants can endure them. Their bodies storing enough energy to cross oceans and enough resilience to withstand weeks without rest. And as they migrate, they spread life across the globe, connecting ecosystems that seem separate but are linked by these great travelers. And so the currents themselves become a driving force behind gigantism. For only those capable of enduring their demands will thrive, and size is the adaptation that allows survival in a world shaped by constant motion. And in this endless cycle, the giants are both travelers and rulers of the seas. Colossal energy stores. To survive in the ocean means to survive long periods of scarcity. For food is not always guaranteed, and prey is often scattered across great distances. And here, size becomes a tool of endurance. For the giants can store fat, blubber, an energy in amounts smaller creatures could never dream of, turning their own bodies into reservoirs of survival. And this ability allows them to outlast the lean times, to dive deep for hours, to migrate for months, and to live for decades. In a cycle of feast and famine, big, they are living batteries, carrying within them the power to withstand extremes. And it is this endurance that ensures their survival in the shifting, unpredictable world of the sea. The secret of longevity. The giants of the sea are not only immense in size, but also extraordinary in their lifespan. For many of them live longer than most creatures on Earth, with whales reaching centuries, deep-sea fish enduring ages, and giant tortoises and sharks becoming living history. And this longevity is tied to their size. For larger creatures often live slower, steadier lives, conserving energy and avoiding the rapid pace of smaller species. And in the ocean, where change comes slowly and survival depends on endurance, long life is a gift that allows the giants to reproduce over many decades, to pass on their strength again and again, and to survive disasters that would wipe out generations of smaller beings. And so, gigantism becomes not only a tool of power, but also a key to time itself, giving the giants of the ocean a lifespan that connects past to present, turning them into living monuments of nature's enduring strength. Gigantism as a shield against the abyss. The abyss of the ocean is a place of eternal night, where pressure rises with every descent and food becomes scarce. And here, gigantism is not luxury, but necessity, because only the largest creatures can withstand the crushing depths. Their bodies strong enough to resist pressure, and their energy efficient enough to survive with little nourishment. And in this alien world, the giants find their home, colossal. Squids drifting through the darkness, giant isopods crawling along the seabed, and whales diving deeper than any other mammals to hunt prey that has never seen the sun. And in this abyss, where smaller forms are broken by pressure or starved by scarcity, the giants endure. And so gigantism becomes a shield, a way of life, a survival strategy that turns the most hostile environment on Earth into a kingdom where only the massive can rule. Echoes in human mythology. For as long as humans have gazed upon the sea, we have imagined it as a home of monsters, of leviathans, of beings so vast they could swallow ships whole. And these myths, passed down through generations, were inspired not by fantasy alone, but by glimpses of the real giants beneath the waves. Whales rising from the depths like living mountains, squids with arms as long as masts, shadows beneath the surface too large to comprehend. And so the ocean's giants became the foundation of legends, reminders of the unknown power of the sea. And even today, when science explains what myths once feared, the awe remains. For to see a whale breach is to understand why humans once spoke of sea dragons, and to imagine what still lies unseen in the deep is to realize that the line between myth and reality is thin, and that the giants of the ocean are as much legend as they are life. The giants, as ecosystem engineers, the largest creatures of the ocean, are not only survivors, but also creators. For their very presence shapes the environments around them. Whales, for example, fertilize the sea with nutrients each time they dive and surface, feeding plankton that sustain the food chain and their migrations spread life across entire oceans, while the carcasses of giants that perish become ecosystems in themselves, feeding creatures on the seafloor for decades. Size is not only for themselves, but for the ocean as a whole, and every giant that swims beneath the waves is both a ruler and a guardian, shaping the delicate balance of the seas with every move they make. The ocean as evolution's laboratory throughout history. The ocean has acted as a laboratory for evolution, a place where new forms are tested, where life is pushed to extremes, and where gigantism is a recurring theme. For, in its infinite space and abundant energy, creatures grow into forms that stretch the limits of possibility. And the ocean's experiments have produced the largest creatures of all time, not once, but again and again, proving that gigantism is not chance, but inevitability when life is given the right conditions. And this laboratory never closes. Even today, it is producing species we do not yet know, hidden in the deep, carrying on the legacy of size. And when we study the giants, we see not just individuals, but the very hand of evolution itself, sculpting forms that defy imagination, and reminding us that the ocean is the true birthplace of extremes. The unfinished story of giants, the tale of the ocean's giants, is not over, for even now, life continues to evolve beneath the waves, and there may be creatures of immense size that we have not yet discovered, living in trenches deeper than our submarines, swimming in regions humans have never explored. And this unfinished story makes the giants of the ocean more than just biology. They are mysteries waiting to be revealed, living proof that Earth still holds secrets. And each time we explore the depths, we find more questions than answers, as if the sea wishes to remind us that it will never be fully known. And so the giants are both reality and possibility, both what we have seen and what we may yet see. And their story is the story of the ocean itself, vast, unfinished, and eternal, forever reminding us that the ocean breeds giants because it always has, and because it always will. It always will. The ocean as a world of pressure and silence. The ocean is unlike the air we breathe. It is a world of immense pressure, a world where sound travels faster and farther, a world where silence and stillness dominate. And in this unique environment, gigantism thrives because larger creatures can endure pressure more effectively, their bodies designed to withstand crushing forces that grow with every meter descended. And in silence, being large gives them the advantage of detecting faint vibrations, hearing calls across entire oceans, and communicating through low-frequency sounds that smaller animals cannot produce or perceive. And so gigantism is not simply about strength, but about perception, about thriving in an environment where pressure and silence shape every movement. And the giants of the sea have mastered this world, turning the very elements of the ocean into their tools of survival. The giants and the climate connection. The giants of the ocean are more than just remarkable beings. They are also vital players in the Earth's climate system. For whales stir nutrients with every dive, helping plankton bloom, and plankton absorb carbon dioxide, capturing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. And so the massive size of these creatures makes them not only survivors, but also regulators of the climate itself, shaping the balance of life on Earth. And this connection reminds us that gigantism is not only a biological adaptation, but also an environmental necessity, For, without the giants, the cycles of life that stabilize the climate would falter. And as climate shifts today, the survival of giants becomes even more crucial, because they are guardians of balance, silent workers that keep the system alive, proving that their size is not excess but essential for the world we live in. The hidden kingdom of giants, the ocean holds more unexplored territory than any place on Earth, with trenches deeper than mountains are tall, with plains stretching unseen across the seafloor. And in these hidden places, giants rule. Creatures adapted to live in darkness. Creatures whose existence we often discover only when one washes ashore or is caught by accident. And each discovery reminds us that we know little of the true scale of life beneath the waves. For if colossal squids can escape our sight for centuries, what other giants wait in the black waters, unseen, unknown, and perhaps even larger? And so the ocean remains a hidden kingdom of giants, a place where the unknown is as real as the known, and where evolution continues its ancient work, shaping beings that remind us of both nature's power and our own ignorance of the world below. The law of scale in the sea on land. Size is limited by bones, by gravity, by heat, by the sheer difficulty of supporting mass. But in the ocean, these laws bend, and scale takes on a different meaning, because water supports the body, distributes weight, and allows size to grow, almost without limit. And this law of scale means that in the sea, evolution can reach for extremes that are impossible on land. And so the ocean becomes a workshop of titanic life, a place where creatures grow not only larger but differently, where forms stretch, eyes enlarge, tentacles lengthen, and bodies adapt to vastness itself. And the law of scale is what ensures that the sea will always breed giants, because in this environment, bigger is not only possible, it is natural, it is expected, it is evolution's inevitable path. The giants and human perspective. For as long as humans have lived beside the sea, the giants have shaped our imagination, inspiring both awe and terror, because when we see a whale rise from the waves, or hear the song of a creature larger than any land animal, we are reminded of how small we are, how fragile, how brief, and this perspective is part of their power. For the giants of the sea humble us, reminding us that we do not rule the planet, that we are only one part of a greater whole, and their size is a mirror reflecting our own limitations, forcing us to confront the vastness of nature. And in this confrontation we find wonder, fear, respect, and the understanding that the ocean's giants are not only creatures of biology, but also symbols of the greatness of life itself, the endless cycle of growth in the ocean. Growth is not an accident, but an endless cycle, each generation building upon the last, shaped by the pressures of survival, the abundance of food, the freedom of space, and the demands of migration. And with each cycle, size becomes an advantage, and those who grow larger pass on their strength to the next generation. And so the cycle continues, unbroken across millions of years, producing creatures that dwarf imagination. And this cycle ensures that gigantism is not a passing phase, but a permanent truth of the sea. For as long as the ocean remains, giants will rise, and each one will be a continuation of the cycle. Another chapter in a story that has no end. A story written by the ocean itself in the language of size, scale, and survival. The giants, as keepers of the abyssine, the deep, where no sunlight reaches, where temperatures are cold and food scarce, the giants hold dominion, their immense forms, able to endure what smaller creatures cannot, and they become the keepers of the abyss, guardians of an unseen world. Creatures whose very presence ensures the continuation of ecosystems that would otherwise collapse, and their size is what allows them to dive, to wait, to endure, and in enduring, they keep alive a cycle of life, invisible to us, and though we rarely see them, their role is as vital as that of any creature on Earth. For without the giants, the abyss would fall silent, lifeless, a graveyard instead of a kingdom. And so gigantism is not only for survival, but for stewardship, making the giants keepers of a world we are only beginning to understand. The influence of temperature and oxygen. The giants of the ocean are also shaped by forces less visible. By temperature and oxygen, 4 cold waters allow life to grow larger, slowing metabolism, extending lifespans, and favoring those who conserve energy. While oxygen levels in the water can determine how much energy a creature can store and use. And in this delicate balance, gigantism emerges as the winning strategy. And throughout history, changes in temperature and oxygen have fueled the rise of marine titans, from ancient reptiles to modern whales, and even today, shifts in climate and ocean chemistry may be shaping the giants of tomorrow, showing us that size is not only about space and food, but about invisible forces that move through the water, quiet but powerful, and forever linked to the growth of the largest beings on Earth. The giants and human discovery. The story of ocean giants is also the story of human discovery. For with every new expedition, every deep-sea dive, every sonar scan, we learn more about these colossal beings, and yet the more we discover, the more questions we find. Because the giants live in places we rarely reach, and what we have seen is only a fraction of what exists. And so the giants remain both known and unknown, visible and hidden, proof that the ocean cannot be fully conquered. And every time we encounter a giant, it is both a revelation and a reminder, a revelation of life's power and a reminder of our limits. And this mystery is what keeps our fascination alive. For the giants are not only creatures of the sea, they are also mysteries of our imagination, drawing us back again and again to the endless question of what lies beneath. The eternal kingdom of giants. The ocean is not just a home for giants, it is their eternal kingdom, a place that has bred them for millions of years and will continue to do so for millions more. For the conditions that make them possible are written into the fabric of the sea itself. Buoyancy, food, space, pressure, adaptation, and evolution, all combine to create the perfect environment for gigantism. And as long as the ocean exists, giants will rise, perhaps different in form, perhaps stranger than we can imagine, but always immense, always beyond our scale. And this eternal kingdom ensures that the giants are not relics of the past, but promises of the future, that the sea will never stop producing them, that life will always reach for greatness when given the chance. And so the giants of the ocean are eternal, living proof that in the vastness of the sea, size itself is destiny. The giants and the rhythm of the tides, the rise and fall of the tides, shape the very heartbeat of the ocean, pulling waters across entire coastlines, stirring nutrients, and creating cycles of abundance and scarcity. that influence all marine life, and in this rhythmic world, the giants find opportunity. For their immense bodies allow them to travel with the tides, to cross bays and seas, to follow the lunar pull across vast distances with little effort, and as the tides rise and fall, they carve out feeding grounds, breeding zones, and migratory paths that only the largest can fully exploit. And in this way, gigantism becomes a natural response to the rhythm of the sea. For those who can grow large can harness the tides as invisible highways, moving where smaller creatures would be stranded. And so the endless motion of the moon and ocean together becomes one of the secret engines that drive the giants of the deep. The giants as silent communicators, the giants of the ocean, are not only immense in size, but extraordinary in communication. For through low-frequency sounds, calls, and vibrations, they speak across distances that span entire oceans, and only their massive bodies can produce the deep, resonant songs that travel through water farther than sound can travel through air. And these voices are used to find mates, to signal danger, to coordinate migrations, and to keep families together in a world where sight fails quickly. And so, gigantism enables not just survival, but language, a hidden oceanic dialogue that smaller creatures cannot join. And in these haunting songs, we find both beauty and mystery, for they are the voices of giants, the living music of the sea. And in their silence on land, we realize how much of their world we cannot hear, how much is spoken in tones too low for us, reminding us that the giants are part of a communication network we are only beginning to understand. The role of giants in the food web. When we think of the giants, we see them as isolated wonders, but in truth, they are woven into the fabric of the food web itself, sustaining and shaping life far beyond their size. For the waste of whales fertilizes plankton. Their feeding stirs nutrients from the depths, and their deaths create whale falls, ecosystems that last for decades on the seafloor, feeding creatures from worms to sharks. And this cascading impact proves that gigantism is not selfish, but generous, that the very presence of giants feeds countless smaller lives, and without them, the web of the ocean would be thinner, weaker, less stable. And so the giants are not only products of evolution, but architects of balance. And every massive creature in the ocean is a foundation stone of its ecosystem, holding up chains of life that stretch across the world. The giants and the seasons of the Sitha ocean changes with the seasons, warming and cooling, shifting in currents, blooming with plankton in spring, and starving in the leaner months. And in these vast changes, only the largest creatures can adapt fully, storing enough energy to endure the harsh times, migrating to follow the cycles of abundance, and reproducing when conditions are at their best. And so gigantism is not random, but tied to the pulse of the earth itself. For as the planet turns, as sunlight waxes and wanes, the sea reshapes its bounty, and the giants must be ready. And their immense size is what gives them that readiness, the ability to endure hunger, to travel for food, to wait for the right season. And so the rhythm of the seasons and the growth of giants are intertwined, two cycles bound together in the story of survival. The giants as symbols of mystery for centuries. The giants of the ocean have been more than biological curiosities. They have been symbols, embodiments of mystery itself. For when humans first saw them, rising from the waves like living islands. They seemed otherworldly, beyond comprehension, and even now, in the age of satellites and submarines, they remain mysterious, vanishing into depths we cannot follow, appearing without warning, disappearing without trace. And so their gigantism becomes not only a scientific phenomenon, but a spiritual one, a reminder of the unknown, a reminder that the ocean still holds secrets and that life can still surprise us with its scale and power. And the giants, by their very existence, force us to accept mystery, to respect the unknown, and to wonder at the vastness of life that continues to thrive beyond our sight. The giants and the fragility of lifefall, though giants seem invincible, their sheer size suggesting dominance and permanence. In truth, climate and environment. And when those balances shift, the giants are among the first to feel it, for their enormous needs make them vulnerable to scarcity, to pollution, to change. And this fragility is a paradox, for the largest beings are also the most at risk when the ocean falters. And this truth reminds us that gigantism is both power and weakness, both strength and vulnerability. And as humans alter the oceans through fishing, warming, and pollution, we place the giants in danger, and in their fragility we see our own, for their survival is tied to ours. And if the giants vanish, a part of the ocean's soul vanishes too. The giants and the unknown future as the ocean changes in the modern era, shaped by warming seas, melting ice, and shifting currents. The future of giants is uncertain, and yet evolution is always at work, shaping life toward new forms. And perhaps new giants will emerge, perhaps stranger, larger, or different than those we know. And the possibility of future giants is a reminder that the ocean never stops experimenting, that gigantism is not a fixed story, but an ongoing one. And even as some species decline, others may rise, filling new roles, adapting to new conditions, and creating a future in which giants will still roam the seas, though not exactly as they do today. And this uncertainty makes the story of ocean giants not only about the past and present, but also about tomorrow, a story still being written in waves and currents. The giants as teachers of scale. When we look at the giants of the ocean, we are forced to confront the concept of scale, to realize that our human sense of size is limited, that the earth itself is home to beings so immense they defy comparison. And this lesson in scale is important, for it humbles us, reminding us that we are not the measure of all things, that life takes forms beyond our comprehension, and gigantism in the ocean teaches us to expand our imagination, to accept that life can grow on scales far greater than ours. And this lesson changes the way we see the world. For once we understand the giants, we understand that Earth is bigger, stranger, and more powerful than we believed, and that our place within it is small, fragile, and precious. The giants as navigators of the deep, the giants of the ocean, are also its great navigators, traveling across entire oceans, using the stars, the magnetic fields of the earth, and currents invisible to us, and their size allows them to endure the journeys that smaller creatures could never complete. And though we cannot fully understand how they navigate, their gigantism is key, for without immense energy, reserves, and endurance, such feats would be impossible. And so the giants are not only wanderers, but masters of navigation, teachers of a skill we can barely comprehend. And each time a whale crosses from pole to pole, it proves that size is not only survival, but also direction, a compass built into the body of a giant. The giants as keepers of time, the giants of the sea, are not only large in body, but long in years, living lives that span centuries, carrying within them memories of oceans long past, and in their bodies is written the history of climate, of currents, of change. For their bones, their teeth, and their very existence are records of time, and so they are not only creatures, but archives, keepers of the memory of the planet. And each giant that swims beneath the waves is a living timeline, a witness to the slow unfolding of Earth's history, and their gigantism ensures this role. For only the immense live long enough, endure long enough, and survive long enough to carry time itself within them, making them not only rulers of the ocean, but keepers of its story, guardians of its memory, and symbols of life's endurance. Across the ages, the giants and the power of pressure deep beneath the surface. The crushing weight of the ocean pushes life to evolve in strange directions. And among these adaptations, gigantism stands tall. For the immense size of some creatures becomes a shield against the pressure, allowing them to function where smaller bodies would collapse. And though the pressure at such depths is unimaginable to us, the giants endure it with bodies built to resist, their very cells and structures adapted to strength. And in this way, the ocean encourages the rise of large forms, creatures that can stand firm against the endless weight of water. And though fragile in some ways, they are also perfectly designed to survive the conditions of their world. And gigantism is thus not only a matter of food and space, but also of resilience, a direct answer to the crushing embrace of the deep. The giants, as masters of energy, to grow to such sizes requires energy. And the giants of the sea have mastered the art of finding, conserving, and converting it. For whales transform tiny krill into vast reserves of strength. Giant squid harness the abundance of smaller prey, and colossal sharks consume what others cannot. And this ability to feed efficiently, to draw power from what the ocean offers, is part of why the ocean breeds giants, because the waters are rich with small creatures in great numbers, and the giants have found ways to consume them in bulk, to turn countless small lives into one massive body. And this efficiency allows them not only to grow, but to endure, to migrate, to reproduce, and to remain dominant, proving that gigantism is not only about size, but about energy, about mastering the equation of intake and survival on a scale few can imagine. The giants and the role of darkness. Much of the ocean is wrapped in darkness, a place where sunlight never reaches, and in this shadowy world, gigantism becomes a strange but common feature. For the lack of light reduces visibility and competition, allowing large forms to thrive without constant predation. And in the dark, huge bodies become advantageous, holding energy longer, navigating by touch, vibration, and instinct. And so many deep-sea giants grow, not because of light, but because of its absence. And as we descend into these depths, we find that gigantism is one of the most reliable strategies for life in darkness. For in a world without sight, survival belongs not to the smallest, but often to the largest. Those who can endure isolation, hunger, and the crushing black expanse of the abyss. the giants and the ocean's immensity. The ocean itself is vast beyond comprehension, covering most of the planet, stretching deeper and farther than any landscape on land. And in this immensity, life has room to grow to sizes that would be impossible in smaller, confined spaces. And gigantism is in part simply the ocean reflecting itself, creating creatures that match its own scale. For in a world without walls, without boundaries, size is not a limitation but an expression of freedom. And the giants of the sea embody the vastness of the waters, showing us that when space is infinite, life will expand to fill it. And thus the immensity of the ocean becomes the canvas upon which gigantism is painted. Each giant creature a living reflection of the size and majesty of its environment. The giants as survivors of extinction throughout Earth's history. Extinction events have swept away countless species, but the giants of the sea, in one form or another, have often endured, adapting to new oceans, new climates, and new challenges. And this resilience is tied to their size, for their bodies allow them to migrate when environments collapse, to store energy when food vanishes, and to survive when others perish. And though some giants have been lost forever, others remain as living relics, testaments to survival across millennia. And in this way, gigantism becomes not just a feature, but a shield, a way of outlasting change, of standing tall against extinction itself. And in every giant that swims today, we see not only adaptation, but triumph, the survival of scale across the violent history of Earth. The giants and the chemistry of the sea salt, minerals, oxygen, and currents of chemicals move through the ocean, shaping every living thing. And gigantism is influenced by this chemistry. For in waters rich in oxygen, larger bodies can thrive. And in nutrient-heavy zones, food is abundant enough to support immense creatures. And the chemistry of the ocean feeds into the very biology of its giants, fueling their growth, sustaining their movements, and dictating where they can live. And though invisible to us, these currents of chemistry act like unseen architects, drawing the outlines of gigantism beneath the waves. And every giant we see is also a product of this hidden world. The interaction of salt, oxygen, they actively shape balance, keeping ecosystems in check by consuming vast numbers of smaller creatures, preventing overgrowth, and distributing nutrients through their movement. And in doing so, they maintain the equilibrium of the ocean itself, ensuring that no one form of life overwhelms the others. And gigantism, then, is not simply indulgence, but responsibility. For these massive creatures hold back chaos, keep the system from collapse, and provide stability through their sheer existence. And when they are removed, balance falters, proving that the ocean breeds giants, not only because it can, but because it must, because the presence of such immense beings ensures that the sea remains fertile, ordered, and alive. The giants and the limits of science, despite all our technology, the giants of the ocean continue to defy our understanding, appearing in forms we cannot fully explain, in sizes that challenge our theories, and in behaviors that remain mysterious. And their gigantism reveals the limits of science, for though we can measure, observe, and study, the full reasons behind their growth remain partly unknown. And this mystery reminds us that the ocean is not yet conquered, that even the largest of its creatures escape full comprehension, And perhaps that is why they are so captivating, because they are living enigmas, proof that science has boundaries. And gigantism is one of the edges where knowledge falters, where wonder remains stronger than explanation, leaving us in awe. The giants and the pulse of evolution. The story of gigantism is the story of evolution itself, the slow and patient shaping of life across time. And the giants of the sea stand as monuments to that process, showing us what can emerge when natural selection is allowed to act across millions of years in a world vast enough, rich enough, and stable enough to support such forms. And their existence proves that evolution does not only create the small and efficient, but also the large and majestic, that survival can be written in size as well as in speed or cunning. And so each giant is a testament to time, to patience, to the relentless pulse of adaptation that shapes life into forms that astonish us. And gigantism is not a mistake, but a masterpiece crafted by evolution's hand. The giants as living wonders befall. The giants of the sea are wonders, living spectacles that capture our imagination and stir our souls, reminding us of how extraordinary life can be. And though science seeks to explain them, their majesty lies beyond mere reason, in the awe they inspire, in the way their presence makes us feel small, yet connected to something vast. And their gigantism is the essence of that wonder, the reason we stop, look, and marvel, because in their size we see possibility, mystery, and power all at once. And so the giants are more than animals. They are symbols of life's grandeur, gifts of the ocean that remind us that the world is still filled with miracles, and that as long as they swim, the earth remains a place of beauty and endless discovery. The giants and the oceans, endless depths. The deeper we descend into the ocean, the more we realize how its sheer depth allows creatures to evolve into monumental forms. For the abyss is a place where time itself seems to stretch and slow, where conditions remain steady for millions of years, and this stability gives life the room to expand, to experiment, and to grow without the constant upheavals seen on land. And in these depths, creatures do not face walls, trees, or mountains to limit their size. Instead, they have miles of open water above and beneath them, an infinite column of space in which to roam. And as they adapt, their bodies respond to the abundance of room by reaching sizes that seem impossible elsewhere. And this immensity not only accommodates giants, but actually nurtures them, because the larger the body, the better the endurance in the deep. And in darkness, where distances stretch farther than light can travel, being large becomes a survival strategy, a way to conquer hunger, to conserve energy, and to command territory. And thus, the endless depths act like a canvas for gigantism, painting life on a scale that mirrors the incomprehensible magnitude of the waters themselves. And so every colossal squid, every vast whale, and every unseen giant of the abyss is a direct child of the depths, a living monument shaped by space so vast that the idea of limits fades, leaving only possibility and size beyond imagination. The giants and the ancient oceans of earth. When we think of the giants that roam the seas today, we are also looking at echoes of the ancient oceans. For millions of years ago, before humans existed, the seas bred massive forms that dwarfed much of what we see now. And the ocean has always been the cradle of gigantism, from colossal marine reptiles of the age of dinosaurs, to armored fish that stretched across entire river mouths. And this history shows us that gigantism is not a modern accident, but a pattern, a recurring theme of life in water, repeating itself again and again across eras. For the chemistry of ancient seas, the flow of nutrients, and the stability of water compared to land created perfect conditions for size to flourish, and many giants that exist today are living legacies of that deep history. Creatures that carry the same evolutionary blueprint that produced leviathans long ago. And so, when we look at a blue whale rising from the surface or a giant squid emerging from the dark, we are not only seeing a creature of today, but an ancient story retold. A lineage that proves the ocean has always been the great forge of enormity, shaping and reshaping giants as the ages pass, and reminding us that the roots of gigantism run as deep in time as they do in water. The giants and the mystery of survival strategies and the struggle to survive. Size can be both a weapon and a shield, and in the ocean, gigantism becomes one of the most reliable strategies. For being enormous allows creatures to resist predators, to hold energy for long migrations, and to dominate their ecosystems in ways that smaller beings never could. And the ocean rewards this strategy because it is one of the few environments vast and rich enough to sustain it. And so gigantism is not simply about growing for growth's sake, but about finding a path of survival that works over millennia. And the giants show us that sometimes endurance depends not on speed or stealth, but on sheer immensity, on the ability to simply outlast every threat, to weather the storms of hunger and change. And the larger the body, the more flexibility it has to cope with extremes, whether they are sudden drops in food or vast shifts in current. And so, survival itself writes gigantism into the ocean story, etching size as one of its most powerful tools. And as we look into the deep, we begin to understand that for many creatures, the choice was simple: grow larger or perish. And those who grew are the ones that remain, towering testaments to the power of survival written in body and scale. The giants and the law of abundance. The ocean is filled with abundance, not in the sense of massive prey, but in the endless swarms of small organisms, plankton, krill, and tiny fish that fill the waters like dust in sunlight. And it is this abundance that fuels giants. For the secret to size is not hunting larger creatures, but consuming countless small ones. And the ocean provides them in numbers beyond comprehension. And so whales feed on krill by the ton. Basking sharks filter microscopic plankton, and giant jellyfish feast endlessly on drifting prey. Each massive body built on the principle that small lives, taken in unimaginable quantities, can sustain the largest forms on Earth. And this balance between the minuscule and the massive is one of the strangest paradoxes of the sea, that the biggest creatures depend not on hunting their equals, but on grazing the invisible multitudes beneath the surface. And in this way, the giants are children of abundance, born from the endless production of life at the smallest scales. And the ocean, by fueling this cycle, ensures that gigantism is not only possible, but inevitable. Because when the supply of food is infinite, the growth of size knows no limit, and thus abundance itself becomes the mother of giants. The giants and the silence of the sea-on land giants are often impossible to hide. their size betraying them to predators and competitors. But in the ocean, the silence and vastness cloak even the largest bodies, allowing them to exist without constant conflict. And here gigantism finds its safe harbor, because in the silence of the sea, the presence of giants is not a curse but a gift, a strategy that works. And the ocean does not punish size the way land does. It allows it to flourish. And so creatures grow, not only larger, but bolder, shaped by an environment that softens their risks, that hides them in shadow and silence. And in this hidden world, the very immensity of their bodies becomes part of the silence. As whales move through the water almost noiselessly despite their bulk, and squid vanish into the black despite their tentacles stretching longer than a ship. And thus gigantism is nurtured by the quiet embrace of the ocean, where being large does not draw death, but instead grants freedom. And in this way, the silence of the sea becomes the guardian of giants, allowing them to exist unseen, undisturbed, and unchallenged for ages. The giants and the rhythm of migration across the seas. Migration is one of the most grueling tasks any creature can endure. 4 distances stretch beyond horizons, and seasons demand long journeys to survive. And it is here that gigantism reveals one of its greatest strengths. 4 large bodies conserve energy better, allowing giants to travel thousands of miles without faltering, storing reserves in blubber, muscle, and massive organs that sustain them across barren stretches of water. And so whales cross oceans, sea turtles return to beaches, and even the great sharks travel vast circuits of the globe. Each migration possible because their size gives them endurance. And in this way, the rhythm of the ocean, the pulse of currents and seasons, favors the giant over the small, rewarding those who can endure the distance. And gigantism is not simply tolerated, but celebrated in the rules of migration. And the ocean ensures that its greatest travelers are also its greatest beings. Colossal forms shaped by the need to move, to wander, and to return. And every journey of a giant is proof that size itself is the vessel of survival across the endless pathways of the seas of the sea. The giants and the balance of predation is the engine of evolution. But in the ocean, size changes the equation. For once a creature grows beyond a certain scale, it becomes untouchable, beyond the reach of nearly all predators. And this freedom grants it new power, allowing it to live longer, reproduce more, and dominate its environment in ways smaller creatures cannot. And this is why gigantism thrives, because the ocean rewards those who surpass the limits of predation, creating beings who are not the hunted but the untouchable. And while small, fish must dart and flee endlessly, a whale swims calmly, unchallenged, and a giant squid moves with slow confidence, secure in its size. And this balance of predation ensures that the ocean breeds giants not as accidents, but as survivors, rulers of the food chain, not through aggression alone, but through sheer immensity. And as long as they remain, they embody the truth that in the sea, size itself can be the ultimate defense. The giants and the hidden energy of currents beneath the surface. Currents act as invisible rivers, carrying warmth, nutrients, and energy across the globe. And it is this hidden force that fuels gigantism, because giants are able to ride these currents, conserve their own strength, and feed on the richness they deliver. and many large creatures time their movements to the cycles of the sea, positioning themselves where currents bring food in abundance, and their size allows them to drift farther, endure longer, and exploit these flows in ways smaller beings cannot. And so, gigantism is in part a partnership with the sea's hidden energy, the unending movement of water that makes life possible. And the largest forms become the greatest beneficiaries, their bodies tuned to the rhythm of circulation that stretches from pole to pole. And in this way, the giants are not isolated beings, but parts of the ocean's great machinery, proof that size is not just biology, but also geography, chemistry, and the endless turning of currents beneath the surface. The giants and the language of sounding, the deep sea where light cannot travel, sound becomes the language of survival, and giants have mastered it. For whales sing across oceans, their voices carried farther than any other animal sound on Earth. And these songs require massive lungs, vast chests, and bodies built for resonance. And their gigantism is not only about endurance, but also communication, the ability to call across thousands of miles and connect with their kind. And in this way, size becomes a tool of unity, of culture, of survival through shared sound. And though we barely understand their languages, we know they are profound, and gigantism ensures they can be spoken and heard. And so, in the ocean, the very physics of sound rewards the large, making giants into voices of the deep, keepers of the language of the sea. And their songs remind us that gigantism is not only silent majesty, but also living music, echoing endlessly through the water. The giants and the future of the ocean. As we look forward, the giants of the sea become more than wonders, they become questions, for their future is tied to our choices. And though the ocean has always bred them, their survival depends on balance, on whether we can protect their food, their migrations, and their space. And if they vanish, the ocean will lose not only its largest forms, but its living symbols of endurance. And gigantism will become only a memory, a story of what once was. But if they endure, then the ocean will continue to reflect its greatness in their bodies. And life will remain vast, mysterious, and strong. And so the giants are not only the past and present of the ocean, but its future, mirrors of our responsibility, proof that the sea still holds power beyond imagination. And if we allow them to thrive, they will continue to teach us, inspire us, and remind us why the ocean breeds greatness, why it breeds size, and why it breeds giants, the giants and the secrets of the abyss below the shimmering surface, where sunlight cannot penetrate and darkness rules unchallenged. The abyss becomes the perfect cradle for giants, for in this silent world, pressure rises, temperatures drop, and life is forced to adapt in extraordinary ways. And gigantism emerges as one of nature's most powerful solutions, allowing creatures to endure where smaller bodies would falter, and here giant isopods scuttle across the seabed, massive squids drift through the gloom, and colossal worms stretch in the mineral-rich vents, each a testament to survival on an epic scale. And their very size becomes their strategy, conserving energy, defending against predators, and outlasting hunger. And though the abyss is hostile, it is also generous, offering vast open space, hidden food webs, and ancient stability. And within this balance, gigantism thrives, giving rise to forms that astonish us, reminding us that where we see emptiness, nature sees opportunity, and the abyss itself is the architect of giants, shaping life into monumental beings that carry the weight of the deep upon their bodies. The giants and the endless feast. The ocean is not only vast but abundant, with trillions of tiny organisms drifting in its currents, plankton swirling in clouds, krill swarming in unimaginable numbers, and schools of fish moving like living rivers. And from this feast the giants are born, for where food is plentiful, size becomes sustainable, and the blue whale, the largest creature ever to live, takes advantage of this endless supply, consuming millions of krill each day to fuel its enormous bulk. And giant sharks patrol the waters to devour entire schools in a single strike, while massive rays filter endless waves of plankton with mouths like nets. And this abundance is what makes gigantism possible, for without such resources, colossal bodies could not survive, and the ocean's capacity to feed its largest creatures is unmatched by any environment on land, making it the ultimate breeding ground for giants, where food and scale exist in harmony, and where life can reach its fullest potential through size. The giants and the rhythm of migration across the vast blue expanses. Giants move with the rhythm of the ocean, following ancient routes carved by currents, temperatures, and the of prey, and their massive bodies make these journeys possible. For whales can travel thousands of miles without pause, their immense fat reserves fueling their movement, while giant sharks and rays follow seasonal shifts across hemispheres, and colossal squid drift with the slow pull of deep currents. And in this rhythm of migration, gigantism proves its value. For smaller creatures could not endure the distance, could not survive the hunger, and could not match the endurance. And so size becomes a tool for survival, allowing them to bridge worlds, to connect ecosystems, and to thrive in a planet-sized home. And the ocean breeds giants, not only to live within its immensity, but to move across it, to embody its flowing, endless rhythm, and to make migration itself a story written in size and strength. The giants and the language of sound beneath the surface. Light fades, but sound travels far, carrying across hundreds of miles. And in this world of echoes and vibrations, the giants use size to amplify their voices. For the blue whale's call is the loudest sound produced by any living creature, reaching across oceans, connecting populations, and guiding individuals in the vastness. And their immense size makes this communication possible. As larger bodies create deeper, more resonant sounds, vibrations that cut through the endless water, and in the language of sound, gigantism becomes essential, allowing communication across distances that seem impossible. And in this way, the giants are not isolated but connected, their songs weaving the ocean together, creating a living network of voices. And the ocean breeds giants, in part, so that the silence of its immensity is never empty. For the echoes of these creatures fill the dark with meaning, with presence, and with life. The giants and the armor of time. The ocean has existed for billions of years, a timeless force that has shaped every form of life. And within its history, gigantism emerges as a recurring theme, appearing again and again in different ages. From the armored sea scorpions of prehistory to the mighty ichthyosaurs, to the whales and squid of today. And this pattern reveals that the ocean favors size as a survival strategy, a way of enduring across eras, and the giants we see now are heirs to that legacy, living monuments to time itself, for their ancestors swam when the continents were young, when climates shifted, when life itself was reshaped, and their size allowed them to endure, to persist through the turning of ages. And gigantism is thus not merely a quirk, but an ancient armor, proof that in the theater of time, the ocean always returns to giants, always favors their resilience, and always ensures their survival when others vanish. The giants and the silence of depths. The deeper we go, the quieter the world becomes, with fewer creatures, fewer lights, and fewer signs of life. And in this silence, gigantism emerges as an answer, for larger bodies are better at storing energy, at surviving long stretches without food, and at navigating the void with minimal resources. And so many deep-sea creatures grow large, their forms exaggerated in the absence of competition, their survival written in bulk and endurance. And this silence shapes them. Noisy shallows and gigantism here is not about dominance but survival, about making peace with scarcity, about enduring isolation. And the ocean breeds giants in its depths because only giants can carry silence. Only giants can last in the endless waiting. And only giants can make the abyss their home. The giants and the architecture of cold, the waters of the deep are frigid, and cold slows life, extending lifespans, reducing metabolism. And so in the architecture of cold, gigantism becomes inevitable as creatures grow slowly but steadily, accumulating size across long lifetimes. And the frigid depths favor bodies that can conserve heat, withstand slow movement, and survive with efficiency. And thus giant forms emerge, not in bursts, but in patience, sculpted by the icy hand of time. And their size is not just survival, but mastery of the cold, a way of thriving where warmth is absent, and as glaciers feed the seas, as polar currents shape the world, these giants move in rhythm with the cold, embodying its stability and its power. And the ocean breeds them as living pillars of frost, reminders that life adapts even to the chill. And gigantism is its chosen form of resilience in frozen waters. The giants and the theater of predation has always driven evolution. And in the ocean, where hunters and prey meet in endless cycles, gigantism becomes both weapon and shield. 4 large bodies deter predators, resist attacks, and intimidate rivals, while also providing the strength to overpower prey that others cannot. And giant sharks, colossal squid, and massive whales each represent different strategies in this theater of predation, proving that size can be both offense and defense, both threat and protection. And this dual role makes gigantism one of the most successful adaptations of all. And the ocean, filled with hunters, filled with dangers, breeds giants as both guardians and conquerors, sculpting them into beings that define the balance between fear and survival. And in every predatory strike, in every evasive maneuver, gigantism plays its part, making size the ultimate strategy in the eternal performance of life and death. The giants and the web of nutrients. Every creature in the ocean is connected, and the giants play a crucial role in this web, consuming, excreting, and redistributing nutrients across vast distances, fertilizing waters, feeding smaller creatures, and keeping cycles alive, and their immense size makes them powerful engines of ecology, their movements and waste sustaining entire ecosystems. And in this way, gigantism is not just for the giants themselves, but for the ocean at large. For without them, balance would falter, nutrients would stagnate, and abundance would dwindle. And so the ocean breeds giants, not only to survive, but to serve, to maintain the living fabric of the waters. And their bulk becomes more than a body. It becomes a system, a force of renewal, a living current that carries life across the blue planet. And gigantism becomes a vital function of the ocean itself. The giants and the mirror of Wonderwin. We look upon the giants of the ocean. We are reminded of our own smallness, of the vastness of the world, and of the endless creativity of life. And their size becomes a mirror, reflecting not only the ocean's immensity, but also our capacity for awe, for they stir us in ways no smaller creature can, making us feel both humbled and inspired. And their gigantism is the source of that wonder, the reason why humans write stories, paint art, and dream of the sea, because the ocean breeds giants not only for survival, but for meaning, for they are living symbols, proof that the earth still holds mysteries, that life still surpasses our imagination, and that the ocean is not merely water, but a canvas of marvels. And in their immense forms, we see the reflection of possibility itself, the boundless potential of nature, and the reminder that wonder is as necessary as survival. The giants and the canvas of evolution, the ocean, has always been the greatest stage for life, vast, dynamic, and filled with opportunities for adaptation. And within this canvas, evolution paints in large strokes, producing colossal beings that dominate the seas, appearing in whales, sharks, squid, and even ancient sea scorpions, proving that gigantism is a recurring solution to survival. And the ocean, with its scale and stability, allows such traits to flourish, giving creatures the space, food, and time to grow beyond ordinary limits. And so the giants become symbols of evolution's ambition. It chooses to build large actors, and these creatures are not just anomalies, but central figures, playing essential roles in the ecosystem, demonstrating that evolution itself favors gigantism when the environment allows, making the giants not freaks of chance, but masterpieces of adaptation. The giants and the power of buoyancy in land. Gravity limits size, demanding strong bones and structures to support massive weight. But in the ocean, buoyancy eases this burden, allowing life to grow far larger without collapse. And this gift of weightlessness frees creatures to expand into truly colossal forms, for the water carries them, lifts them, and makes size practical. And so whales can stretch 2 lengths longer than airplanes, squid can extend tentacles like living cables, and jellyfish can expand into translucent balloons larger than a human, all because the ocean allows them to float, to grow without the crushing demands of land. And buoyancy thus becomes a partner in gigantism, encouraging life to reach new scales, to stretch bodies beyond the limits of land dwellers. And the giants are the ultimate expression of this partnership, existing as proof that water itself is the secret ally of size, the unseen force that breeds giants by lifting them toward possibilities. Unseen elsewhere, the giants and the stability of currents, the ocean is not still, but alive with motion. currents sweeping across the planet like invisible rivers, carrying warmth, nutrients, and life itself. And these stable pathways give giants the highways they need, allowing massive creatures to travel, to migrate, and to find food across the immensity of the sea. And their colossal bodies are perfectly suited for this constant movement, built for endurance, built for the rhythm of currents. And so whales follow warm streams across hemispheres. Giant turtles navigate entire oceans, guided by flow, and squid drift on the endless pull of deep currents. And in this way, the ocean's stability breeds giants. For size makes travel possible, and travel makes survival certain. And without these currents, the giants could not endure, but with them they thrive, embodying the flow of the sea itself. Living vessels of stability, each movement proof that the ocean is not empty, but a moving cradle that sustains life on a massive scale. The giants and the pulse of oxygen beneath the waves. Oxygen flows differently than on land, dissolved within currents, concentrated in cold waters, and forming rich layers that sustain immense life. And in these oxygen-rich regions, giants are able to flourish. For larger bodies need greater efficiency, and the ocean provides it, making size not a hindrance, but a viable strategy. And whales use oxygen stored in immense lungs to dive for long minutes. Squid filled their blood with copper-rich hemocyanin to endure pressure and depth. And giant fish breathe steadily in the rich flow of polar currents. And the ocean itself fuels these adaptations, breeding giants where air and water meet in harmony, and oxygen becomes the pulse of their lives, the unseen element that makes immensity possible. And gigantism in the sea is tied directly to this invisible rhythm, this life-giving flow, proving that even the breath of the ocean contributes to the rise of its most massive inhabitants. The giants and the memory of ancient seas. The giants of today are heirs to seas that existed long before humans walked the earth, when oceans were filled with creatures of unfathomable scale, trilobites crawling across seabeds, armored prowling like tanks, and reptiles like mosasaurs and ichthyosaurs ruling the waves. And this memory is carried forward in modern giants. For the ocean has always been a place where size thrives, where the conditions favor growth, and where evolution returns again and again to gigantism. And when we see a blue whale or a colossal squid, we glimpse echoes of those ancient seas, reminders that the ocean has always been a breeding ground for the immense, and its giants are not new but timeless, part of a tradition as old as life itself. And this memory shapes the future as well. For as long as the ocean exists, it will breed giants, carrying forward a legacy written in bulk, in power, and in endurance across the ages. The giants and the web of light. Though much of the ocean is dark, the upper layers bloom with light, filled with photosynthesis, glowing plankton, and shifting patterns of brightness. And this light feeds the entire ocean, driving food chains that stretch into the abyss. And where light is abundant, life becomes abundant. And where life is abundant, giants emerge, feeding on countless small creatures sustained by the sun, and the web of light thus breeds gigantism indirectly, powering ecosystems that can support massive bodies. And in this way, the sun reaches into the ocean's heart, building whales, sharks, and rays through chains of energy. and the giants themselves become living embodiments of light transformed into life, showing that even in the deepest shadows, size begins with brightness above, and the web of light is the silent force behind every giant. Proof that the stars themselves play a part in shaping the immensity of ocean life. The giants and the fortress of pressures, one descends into the deep. Pressure grows immense, crushing to human bodies, but normal to creatures adapted to its force. And in this fortress of pressure, gigantism emerges as a strength, allowing creatures to endure where smaller, weaker forms might fail. For larger bodies distribute force differently, adapt metabolism to the crushing weight, and survive instability where the pressure never changes. And so giant amphipods, colossal squid, and vast worms live where no others can, their gigantism making them both resilient and dominant. And the ocean breeds such forms in response to its own weight, sculpting creatures to withstand the immensity pressing down upon them. And here, size is not only survival, but mastery. For the giants of pressure live in realms untouched by light, undisturbed by predators, and shaped only by the crushing embrace of the sea itself. And they thrive within it, turning adversity into advantage, and immensity into power. The giants and the tides of reproduction in the ocean takes many forms, from mass spawning events to long migrations to ward breeding grounds. And in these cycles, gigantism plays a crucial role. For larger bodies can carry more offspring, travel farther to reproduce, and sustain young with greater resources. And whales nurse calves with rich milk that fuels rapid growth, while massive fish release countless eggs into the water to overwhelm predators by sheer numbers. And in both cases, size ensures survival of the next generation, proving that gigantism is not only for the present, but for the future, a way of passing life forward with strength. And the ocean, with its vast distances and countless dangers, demands such strategies. And so it breeds giants to secure continuity, to ensure that life not only survives but thrives, each colossal being both a parent and a promise, carrying forward the cycles of the sea into ages yet to come. The giants and the silence of competition in the open ocean. Unlike crowded reefs or coasts, competition is reduced, for there is space beyond imagination and food spread across miles. And in such silence of competition, gigantism thrives. For large bodies do not face the same constant struggle for territory, and instead they claim vast ranges as their own, moving without rivals, feeding without constant conflict, and their size becomes a way to rule this openness, to occupy niches that smaller creatures cannot. And so the ocean's emptiness itself breeds giants, for space favors the large, and the absence of walls, of boundaries, of limits, creates the conditions for immensity. And in this silence, competition fades, and gigantism becomes not only viable, but dominant, proving that sometimes size is not born from fighting, but from freedom, from the endless openness that the ocean alone can provide. And the giants are its natural rulers, vast forms drifting through a world of boundless space. The giants and the voice of the future as the world changes, as climates shift and as ecosystems face new challenges. The giants of the ocean remain powerful symbols of resilience, for their size has carried them through millennia of transformation. And even now, they adapt to new realities, shifting migration patterns, altering feeding grounds, and surviving in seas that grow warmer and more uncertain. And their gigantism gives them both strength and vulnerability, for while their bulk sustains them, it also ties them to fragile food chains, and yet they continue, enduring as they always have. And in this way, the giants become the voice of the future, a reminder that life persists, adapts, and evolves, and that the ocean will always find ways to breed new forms, new giants, new marvels, as it has since the dawn of time. And their presence tells us that the story of gigantism is far from over, that the future will echo with new titans, each born of the endless sea. The giants and the rhythm of migration across the endless seas. Migration becomes the heartbeat of survival, an eternal cycle that demands endurance, strength, and adaptability. And gigantism becomes the natural answer to this challenge, for colossal whales can cross entire oceans, navigating invisible highways of currents and magnetic fields, their size granting them the stamina to endure weeks without rest. And immense sea turtles carry their massive bodies across hemispheres to return to ancient beaches where their kind has nested for millennia. And even great schools of giant fish follow instinctual patterns written into the ocean itself. And size is not just an advantage, but a necessity for such journeys. For to survive across such distances requires reserves of energy, layers of fat, powerful muscles, and hearts capable of fueling entire odysseys. And thus the rhythm of migration becomes a forge where giants are created, each journey demanding immensity, and each immense traveler reminding us that the ocean breeds giants because the path of life within it is measured not in steps but in continents crossed. The giants and the shadow of predation has always been one of the strongest forces shaping evolution, and in the ocean where hunters prowl in 3 dimensions, from the surface to the abyss, gigantism emerges as a shield, a way to deter, intimidate, and outlast predators. For while small fish scatter into schools and hide, massive beings like whales, giant squid, and immense rays become too large for most hunters to even attempt. And in this shadow of predation, size itself becomes survival, a message written in flesh and scale that says to predators, I am too large to kill, too vast to consume, too powerful to risk. And through this evolutionary dialogue, the giants are sculpted, their immensity a direct response to the dangers around them, and in turn their predators to grow larger, sharks evolving into great whites, orcas into pack hunters, and thus gigantism feeds gigantism, creating an arms race where size answers size, and the ocean becomes the ultimate battlefield where only the immense can thrive, proving again why the sea endlessly breeds giants. The giants and the mystery of the abyssal depths remain one of Earth's final frontiers, a world without light, where temperatures fall near freezing and pressure would crush steel. Yet here life thrives, and among its inhabitants many are giants, adapted to the silence and vastness of the deep. For the colossal squid lurks with eyes the size of dinner plates, giant amphipods scuttle like armored machines, and strange elongated fish drift like phantoms. And their size is born from the abyss itself, where scarce resources demand efficiency, and large bodies store energy better and endure longer in the empty dark, and gigantism here is not a luxury but a strategy, a way to wait, to endure, to survive when food may not appear for weeks. And so the mystery of the abyss becomes one of scale, for its giants are proof that life finds ways even in the harshest conditions, bending the rules of existence to grow immense in a place where nothing should survive at all, if at all. The giants and the strength of endurance in the ocean's survival is not always about speed or ferocity, but endurance, the ability to last through storms, migrations, hunger, and danger. And gigantism directly serves this purpose. For larger animals, conserve energy more efficiently, store reserves of fat, and regulate their bodies against cold and heat. And this endurance allows whales to dive deep and resurface with steady rhythm. Let sea turtles glide across currents for months, and grants immense fish the ability to live for centuries. And endurance becomes a form of power in itself, a quiet strength that giants carry as naturally as breathing. And this is why the ocean breeds them, for in an environment so vast and unpredictable, those who endure are those who survive, and those who survive grow immense. Embodying the very patience of the sea, their existence proof that sometimes greatness is not measured in force, but in longevity, in the ability to last when others cannot. And gigantism is the ultimate expression of this truth. The giants and the possums of the polesat, the frozen ends of the earth, where icy waters churn with nutrients, life explodes in abundance. And here the giants gather, sustained by plankton, blooms that stretch for miles, by swarms of krill so vast they turn the sea red, and by currents that carry food in endless supply. And this abundance makes gigantism not only possible, but inevitable. For the whales that migrate here gorge themselves on tons of prey, storing enough energy to sustain journeys thousands of miles long, and seals grow large and strong on rich fish stocks, while polar fish reach unusual sizes compared to their warmer relatives. And thus the poles become breeding grounds for immensity, proving that when food is abundant and concentrated, life chooses to grow larger, stronger, and more enduring. And the giants of the poles stand as monuments to the ocean's generosity, their vast forms testaments to the idea that plenty breeds immensity, and the frozen seas are their cathedral. The giants and the pulse of time in the ocean flows differently, measured not in days but in centuries, and many of its giants embody this slower, deeper rhythm. For the Greenland shark drifts through the Arctic waters for hundreds of years, perhaps for centuries long, its immense body aging so slowly it becomes almost timeless, while giant tortoises and whales stretch their lifespans far beyond most creatures on land. And in this long pulse of time, gigantism plays its role. For larger bodies age slower, heal stronger, and endure longer, carrying knowledge and survival strategies across generations. And in their longevity, these giants hold secrets older than nations, older than human history itself, and the ocean breeds them because time itself is vast, and only immense beings can match its scale, becoming both witnesses and participants in eras too long for ordinary creatures to endure. And so they remind us that gigantism is not only about size, but about time, about living in harmony with the vast, eternal rhythm of the sea, the giants and the architecture of the deep beneath. The waves, the landscape, is not empty, but filled with mountains, trenches, volcanoes, and plains, more expansive than continents. And in this architecture of the deep, giants are shaped, for their bodies must match the scale of the world they inhabit, able to travel from ridges to canyons, from the continental shelf to the abyss. And gigantism becomes a way to exist within this colossal stage, to endure the distances between food sources, to adapt to the crushing walls of trenches, and to thrive along volcanic vents where energy seeps from Earth's core. And thus, the deep itself demands immensity, shaping creatures that can carry their own ecosystems upon them, that can become living extensions of the environment itself. And when we look at whales crossing underwater ranges, or colossal squid lurking in trenches, we see the deep reflected in their immensity, proof that the architecture of the sea breeds architecture in flesh, and the giants are its living monuments. The giants and the echo of sound light fades quickly underwater, but sound travels for miles, becoming the true language of the sea. And giants are masters of this echo, their immense bodies producing calls, clicks, and rumbles that cross entire oceans, uniting pods of whales across horizons, guiding migrations, and warning of danger. And this mastery of sound is linked directly to their size, for only massive lungs and vocal organs can produce such resonance. And the ocean breeds giants because communication at its scale demands immensity, demands voices that can reach through the vastness. And in their calls, the giants become both singers and navigators, their voices weaving invisible maps across the water, guiding not just themselves, but countless others. And sound itself becomes both the product and the reason for their size, the echo of their existence reverberating across the sea. And when we hear a whale song, we are reminded that gigantism is not silent, but filled with voices that embody the scale of the ocean itself, the giants and the unity of ecosystems. No giant exists alone, for each is part of an ecosystem, vast and interwoven, and their size makes them keystones of balance. Whales diving deep and fertilizing the surface with nutrients, sharks maintaining populations by culling the weak, and giant rays shaping currents as they glide. And this unity means that the ocean breeds giants not as anomalies, but as necessities, as essential figures without which the entire system falters. And their immensity gives them the reach to affect ecosystems far beyond their own bodies, making them both individuals and forces of nature. And so gigantism becomes a way of sustaining balance, of ensuring that the ocean remains alive, dynamic, and fertile. And the giants carry this responsibility naturally, their existence tied to the health of everything around them. And in this way, they are both creatures and custodians, living proof that the ocean breeds giants because it needs them, because the scale of life itself demands guardians of equal immensity. The giants and the legacy of immensity. The end. The giants are more than animals, more than adaptations. They are legacies of the ocean itself, reminders of what it means to exist in a world without boundaries. And their immensity is both history and prophecy, for they echo the colossal beings of ancient seas, while hinting at the forms life may take in futures yet unseen. And this legacy stretches beyond biology into myth, culture, and imagination. For humans have always looked upon the giants of the ocean with awe, weaving them into stories of gods, monsters, and mysteries. And in truth, the reality of their existence is greater than the legends, for they are not fantasy, but fact, and the ocean breeds them as it always has, because scale itself is written into its essence, and the giants are its signature, its legacy made flesh. And when we see them, we glimpse both the past and the future, and understand that immensity will always belong to the sea, the giants, and the depths of isolation in the deepest reaches of the ocean. Isolation becomes a sculptor of life, and in this isolation, gigantism emerges as one of the most profound responses, for the creatures that inhabit these regions live in a world where food is scarce, predators are few, and survival depends on endurance, not speed, and the larger the body, the greater the chance of enduring long stretches without nourishment, the greater the ability to move slowly but purposefully across endless stretches of abyss. And so gigantism becomes an answer to loneliness, to emptiness, to the endless dark where only the strongest persist. And while on land isolation often leads to smaller forms, on the seafloor it reverses, and creatures like giant amphipods, colossal squid, and massive jellyfish thrive where others cannot, proving that in the silence of the deep, size itself becomes the companion and shield. And though their world is harsh and unyielding, gigantism gives them the strength to remain, the power to carry their existence forward, and the shape of their bodies is a reflection of the vast and lonely waters they inhabit, making them not only survivors, but living monuments to the endurance of life in the most desolate corners of the planet. The giants and the rhythms of migration for ocean giants. Migration is both necessity and destiny, and their immense size grants them the reserves to cross distances that span entire oceans, to follow the cycles of plankton, krill, and shifting currents across the globe. And this need to travel is one of the forces that encourages gigantism. For a small body could not endure the distances between feeding grounds or the harsh climates encountered along the way, but whales, sharks, and great fish traverse seas with a patience written in their size, their bulk, allowing them to endure hunger, cold, and storms, and every journey they make is an echo of ancient instincts, a rhythm carved into the pulse of the ocean itself. And gigantism ensures that the journey is possible, that the long path between life's resources can be crossed again and again, creating a cycle of endurance that has shaped some of the greatest creatures the world has ever seen. And so the giants remind us that the ocean is not only a home, but a pathway, a highway of life that spans the earth, and size is the only ticket to survival upon it, proving that the sea breeds giants because only giants can follow its timeless rhythms. The giants and the silence of the deep silence is more than the absence of sound in the deep ocean. It is a condition of life. And in this silence, gigantism becomes a paradoxical tool, for massive bodies are less vulnerable to sudden attack, less disturbed by the occasional noises of predators, and more capable of maintaining steady rhythms of life across decades. And so the giants of the sea float through a silence that protects them, their size allowing them to move slowly. To live longer means freedom, the ability to live in calm, unchallenged existence where sound is rare and life is stretched into vast timescales. And perhaps this is why whales communicate with such low, powerful songs, because the silence of the deep demands voices that carry across immense distances, voices suited to giants, and gigantism itself amplifies their ability to endure in the stillness, creating a unique harmony between silence and sighs, between the absence of noise and the presence of monumental life. And so the giants of the ocean reveal to us that silence is not emptiness, but a canvas upon which nature paints its largest masterpieces. The giants and the cold. Embrace cold water is one of the most powerful forces in the ocean, and it favors size above all, because larger bodies retain heat better, because bigger creatures can move through icy currents without losing energy as quickly. And so the frigid waters of the deep and the poles become breeding grounds for giants, where whales feed in vast icy blooms of krill, where colossal squid endure sub-zero darkness, and where giant fish thrive on the edge of frozen seas. And in every one of them, we see that gigantism is an adaptation to temperature, a way to balance the constant theft of heat that the ocean inflicts on its inhabitants. And this is why some of the greatest migrations are toward the cold, why giants return again and again to polar waters, to harness what others cannot. And so the giants teach us that cold is not death, it is opportunity, a challenge answered with sighs. And in their bulk, they carry warmth, endurance, and life across the chill, proving that the ocean breeds giants, because in the coldest places, only giants can endure. The giants and the language of the seas. The ocean is not silent, but filled with sound, low-frequency songs and vibrations that travel farther than sight. And gigantism is tied deeply to this hidden language, for larger bodies produce deeper, longer sounds, and whales, in particular, communicate across oceans with voices that only their size makes possible, their calls reverberating through water for hundreds of miles, connecting distant pods and shaping entire communities. And even giant fish, sharks, and cephalopods use vibrations that resonate differently at larger scales. And so gigantism becomes not just a physical trait, but a key to communication, a way of belonging to the ocean's great conversation. And without sighs, these voices would not carry, and the ocean would be emptier for it. But because it breeds giants, it is filled with resonant songs, pulses, and rhythms that connect life across the immensity. And this language of giants becomes another reason why the ocean gives rise to them, for communication is survival, and gigantism makes it possible, creating an unseen web of sound that links the largest creatures in the water into a shared living chorus, the giants and the slow, carrying memories and instincts across generations, their lives stretching into decades or even centuries. And this longevity allows them to adapt slowly, to endure changes that wipe out faster living species. And in the ocean, where time itself moves differently, where currents take centuries to circulate and ecosystems rise and fall across ages, the giants become the guardians of deep time, their size protecting them from short-term famine, their longevity giving them patience beyond our comprehension. Every giant squid, every colossal shark, we see this echo of time itself, a reminder that life in the ocean does not always rush, that sometimes it waits, moves slowly, and grows immense, carrying the wisdom of long existence as part of survival, is the body that patience wears. The giants and the hidden abundance. Though we imagine the deep sea as barren, the truth is that hidden abundance shapes its giants. For nutrients fall from above in the form of marine snow, and where currents converge, food becomes plentiful, enough to support vast creatures that filter the small into the great. And in this hidden abundance, gigantism thrives because the resources, though spread thin, are constant. And thus the giants become keepers of balance, embodying the abundance of the ocean in their very forms. And though we cannot always see the plankton blooms, the krill swarms, or the endless migrations of smaller prey, the presence of giants tells us they exist, for they are living proof of a hidden plenty that lies beneath the waves. And in this way, gigantism is the ocean's way of revealing abundance through scale. The unseen richness of the waters reflected in bodies so vast, we cannot help but be humbled by them. The giants and the art of patience in the story of the ocean. Patience is perhaps the greatest lesson, and the giants embody it more than any other. Creatures, for their movements are slow, their lives are long, and their growth takes decades. Yet their patience is what allows them to master their world, to outlast predators, to migrate across continents, to survive changes that would destroy smaller species. And their gigantism is inseparable from this patience. For only those who endure can become large. Only those who wait can gather the energy to rise to such scale. And the ocean breeds giants because it is a world built on patience itself, with currents that take centuries to shift and ecosystems that evolve slowly over millions of years. And so the giants are both products and teachers, living examples of how patience and scale intertwine. And in their vast bodies, we see time slowed into flesh, patience embodied in muscle and bone, a reminder that survival is not always about speed or ferocity, but sometimes simply about waiting, growing, and becoming immense. The giants and the boundless horizon like the land. The ocean has no walls, no fences, no barriers to expansion, because creatures that grow larger find no limits, no cliffs or forests to restrict them, only water that stretches endlessly in every direction. And so the sea gives them freedom to expand into forms unthinkable on land. And the largest creatures of all time, whether ancient whales, giant sharks, or colossal cephalopods, have been born in water, where horizons do not confine them. And the ocean breeds giants because it is the only place large enough to contain them, the only realm vast enough for life to stretch to its greatest extremes. And so each giant is a reflection of this boundlessness, proof that when there are no limits, life will always find a way to reach further, to grow larger, to become a monument to possibility. The unchained horizon of the sea, written into the bodies of the beings that rule it. The giants and the endless mystery, even with all our science, the giants of the ocean remain mysteries, their true populations unknown, their deepest behaviors unseen. And gigantism itself remains one of the ocean's greatest secrets, because mystery thrives in vastness, because the unknown feeds possibility. And the giants embody this like no other, leaving us awed, curious, and humbled. And perhaps that is the greatest reason they exist, to remind us that the world is larger than we think, that not everything is ours to master or define. And in their vastness, we are shown the limits of knowledge, the endless space of wonder that still lies hidden beneath the waves. And so the giants are not just creatures, but questions, unanswered, eternal, magnificent. And their gigantism is the living proof that mystery itself is one of the ocean's oldest gifts. The giants and the secret depths. The ocean's depths remain largely unexplored, a realm where darkness and pressure dominate. And in these secret worlds, gigantism often reveals itself as both adaptation and mystery for creatures that rise from these depths. Giant squid, colossal isopods, and other strange leviathans grow, far larger than their surface relatives, their size enabling them to conserve energy, withstand pressure, and dominate an environment where resources are scarce and predators are different. And the lack of human interference allows these giants to flourish unseen, hidden from disruption for millions of years, their forms perfected by evolution in isolation. And when we discover them, they challenge our understanding, reminding us that life adapts in astonishing ways when given freedom and time. And gigantism becomes the secret language of the deep, written across creatures whose very existence proves that the ocean's depths are laboratories of size, mystery, and survival, a place where nature experiments with scale beyond what we could imagine. And each giant discovered is a glimpse into the unknown, a reminder that our planet still hides worlds more alien than outer space itself, worlds where gigantism is not rare but expected, not anomaly but rule. The giants and the ocean currents beneath the surface, powerful currents, move silently, distributing heat, nutrients, and life across vast distances. And for the giants of the sea, these currents act as invisible highways and feeding grounds, sustaining their colossal needs by concentrating plankton, fish, and other prey into predictable patterns. And as the giants travel, their size allows them to endure long migrations, to cross oceans with the help of these rivers of water, feeding as they go, storing the energy they need to continue. And gigantism, in this sense, becomes not only a biological trait, but a natural partnership with the movement of the sea. For only bodies large enough can take full advantage of these currents, riding them like wind across continents, turning the endless ocean from barrier into pathway. And the giants that follow them reveal how interconnected the ocean truly is, how the scale of life matches the scale of the forces that shape it. And gigantism itself becomes a reflection of these global systems. For in an ocean that flows endlessly, life grows endlessly to match it, a union of water and flesh, current and creature, size and survival. The giants and the silence of the deep far below, the crashing of waves and the noise of the surface world, lies a silence so complete it reshapes how life functions. And in this silence, the giants reign. For their size gives them the ability to communicate over vast distances with low-frequency sounds that pierce the stillness, their songs and vibrations, carrying messages, warnings, and calls for mates across hundreds of miles. And this acoustic dominance is only possible because of their scale, because their massive bodies can generate such powerful signals. And thus, gigantism becomes not only a physical adaptation, but also a communicative one, a way to remain connected in a world of darkness and isolation, where survival often depends on finding others in the vast emptiness. And these giants turn silence into a medium of connection, making the ocean not a place of loneliness, but of hidden voices, a living chorus that stretches farther than the eye can see. And their size becomes the amplifier of life's song, proof that in silence, gigantism gives voice, resonance, and presence. The giants and the ancient oceans long before humans walked. The earth, the oceans were already breeding giants, from the armored Dunkleosteus of the Devonian to the massive plesiosaurs and mosasaurs of the Mesozoic seas. And this legacy shows that gigantism is not a new trait, but a recurring pattern, an answer that evolution writes again and again whenever the sea provides the space, food, and stability to allow it. And today's whales, sharks, and squids are simply the latest in a lineage of ocean titans, their bodies carrying echoes of ancient forms that once ruled the waters. And this continuity proves that gigantism is not coincidence, but inevitability, a natural product of the ocean's vastness. And in these creatures, we glimpse a chain of survival stretching across deep time, each giant carrying forward the story of life's ambition, its ability to grow beyond limits, and each modern leviathan a reminder that the ocean has always been a cradle for size, a place where evolution dreams bigger, reaching scales that land could not sustain. And in their very existence today, the giants, our fossils, come to life, living monuments to the ocean's timeless capacity to breed enormity, the giants and the balance of ecosystems in the delicate web of marine life. Giants play roles so immense that their absence reshapes entire systems. For whales regulate plankton through their feeding and fertilization. Sharks control fish populations by targeting the weak and sick. And even giant filter feeders redistribute nutrients as they move. And gigantism thus becomes not indulgence, but necessity, a tool by which balance is maintained across ecosystems, too vast for smaller creatures to control. And when these giants decline, the systems tremble, cascading effects spread, and imbalance grows, showing us that gigantism itself is part of nature's plan, a stabilizing force as much as a spectacle. And every giant we see is not only a wonder, but a worker, maintaining the health of oceans that in turn sustain the planet. And their size is the reason they can perform these tasks, their scale making them not just participants, but architects of balance. And without them, the ocean loses both its guardians and its harmony, proving that gigantism is not luxury, but foundation, a critical design of nature's blueprint for survival. The giants and the gift of buoyancy in land. Gigantism faces gravity's relentless pull, but in the ocean buoyancy changes everything, allowing mass to float, weight to distribute, and size to flourish in ways impossible on the ground. And this natural support system means that creatures can grow enormous without collapsing under their own weight, their bodies suspended by water's embrace. And thus the sea becomes the only environment capable of sustaining truly colossal life, where bones can stretch, muscles can expand, and forms can reach lengths and weights that defy imagination. And buoyancy itself becomes an unseen ally to gigantism, a constant lift that permits whales to glide, squid to drift, and sharks to roam freely. Their size limited, not by structure, but by resources. And this gift of buoyancy ensures that the ocean will always be home to giants, because only here does the physical law of nature allow scale to expand without breaking. And every massive creature is proof of how water itself breeds size, cradling life in a way that gravity on land never could. The giants and the energy of migration. Many of the ocean's giants are also travelers, their size enabling them to cross oceans, to follow feeding grounds, and to survive journeys that would exhaust smaller bodies. And gigantism becomes their engine, storing energy in thick blubber, in immense muscles, in bodies built to endure weeks or months of movement. And migration itself shapes their growth, for only those who can grow large enough to sustain such travel survive. And across generations, this pressure sculpts gigantism into permanence, making whales, sharks, and even turtles not only large but enduring voyagers, tied to cycles that demand strength and stamina. And as they migrate, they shape ecosystems across continents, distributing nutrients, fertilizing waters, and keeping balance in ways unseen, proving that their size is not only for feeding or defense, but also for travel. For migration is the lifeblood of the ocean, and only giants can ride it to its fullest, bridging seas with their immense presence and reminding us that scale itself is a map, a passport, a key to survival across the endless blue. The giants and the rhythm of time. The ocean moves not only in space, but in time, with cycles of seasons, tides, and ages shaping life. And gigantism thrives within this rhythm, for large bodies endure, where smaller ones fail, carrying creatures through famine, through migration, through years of change. And many giants live longer than smaller species, some surviving decades, even centuries, their size allowing them to withstand time itself, to reproduce slowly, carefully, with lives stretched across eras of history. And this longevity ties gigantism to patience, to the slow tempo of the ocean, where vast changes occur over millennia. And the giants are the witnesses, the keepers of continuity. Their presence proof that life can last, can endure, can stretch across time itself. And in their long lives we see the rhythm of the ocean embodied, a reminder that the greatest creatures are also the most enduring. And their gigantism becomes not only a tool for survival, but a testament to the deep, patient pulse of time that rules the sea. The giants and the mystery of evolutionary paths. Not every creature of the ocean becomes a giant. And this selectiveness reveals how mysterious evolution can be. For why one species grows immense while another remains small is not always clear. And gigantism emerges from paths shaped by chance, by need, by environment, and by competition, with each giant representing a unique evolutionary solution, a fork in the road where nature chose scale as the answer. And this unpredictability is part of their allure, because gigantism is never guaranteed, never simple, but always extraordinary. And in studying these giants, we uncover not certainty, but questions about why the ocean breeds some forms into titans, while others remain miniature. And perhaps that is the heart of the mystery, that gigantism is both predictable and surprising, inevitable in some cases and rare in others. And in this paradox, we find the beauty of life, the way it refuses to be reduced to formulas, the way the ocean writes its giants as mysteries, secrets, and wonders all at once. The giants and the future of the ocean as humanity changes the seas with pollution, overfishing, and climate shifts, the fate of the ocean's giants hangs in the balance. For their size makes them vulnerable to our actions, their need for vast amounts of food, clean waters, and open migration routes, placing them directly in the path of our disruptions. And yet their survival is also our survival. For the giants regulate ecosystems, store carbon, and maintain the health of the sea. And if they vanish, the ocean itself will falter. And so the future of gigantism is tied to our choices, to whether we allow these colossal beings to endure or vanish. And in protecting them, we protect not only wonders, but necessities, not only beauty, but balance. And the ocean will continue to breed giants only if we give it the chance, only if we respect the vastness that made them. And in their survival lies the survival of the ocean, and in the ocean's survival lies ours. And the giants remain both warning and hope, a living reminder of what is at stake.